I mean, is this just business or is this something that you see, at some point the individual home has one of these systems to try to reclaim the water that they're using in a home?
Well, it makes a lot of sense. We don't work in that space in part because, hey, remember, it's only 10% of the market.
Sure.
But let's take a look. There's a very concrete example in Miami-Dade County, which was built without much urban planning at all. And so they just sprawled out. And they have over 100,000 septic tanks in the county.
Oh, boy.
And it's very low-lying ground.
Is there still
and
that many septic tanks there? There still is?
Over 100,000.
Oh, wow.
These things are sitting in basically a swamp.
Yeah.
And so they're right above the water table. And the water table is rising for various reasons. And so we're ending up with poop on the lawns and that kind of horrible stuff. And this is very affluent neighborhoods all of a sudden being invaded by this stuff. So the county goes, okay, we'll spend billions to connect sewage. Like, well, yeah, you'll spend $8-10 billion, 20 years of tearing up streets. Even after that, the homeowner has to spend, $20,000 for the sewage connection. So why not just give them a $20,000 rebate?
Yeah.
To go ahead and do their own closed loop treatment. And there's viable right now. Fuji Water has a very good closed loop black water system, as they call it, and it goes into a tank, and once a year it gets pumped out by a truck, because
you have to pump it at some point.
Well, eventually, but most of your black water is 99.9% water, right? The solids is very small percentage. Typically once a year is plenty. So now you've got a completely self-sufficient system. Of course, that can also be reused for irrigation. I mean, when we were in Los Angeles, I was hearing about people with $12,000 a month water bills for their homes. Now, granted, they were in Bel Air, so these were big homes, but still, that's a lot of money to spend on water.
Yeah.
So if you're able to recycle, then it's a win. And frankly, we've got to start recycling. People go, oh, well, why don't we just get our water from the ocean? I'm sorry, that is not an easy solution.
Yeah. Desalinization is very expensive. They haven't quite figured that out.
It's also environmentally difficult. Like, for example, in Huntington Beach, they worked for a decade on a desal plant, and then the state canceled it. Like, that's not very encouraging for the next company wanting to fund a desal plant, right? It's like, no.
Is there an arms race? I would think there would have to be a current arms race trying to solve that problem. Yeah, to get it to be, environmentally and economically, viable. I think there's
the Israelis have gotten the price down to about $800 an acre foot. An acre foot is 1 acre, 1 foot deep, and that's good for about a family of 4 for a year. That's about what a household of 4 people will use in a year. You guys in Vegas, I think, are doing better than that, but that's in California. That's what it is. Well, the lowest price for an acre foot Colorado River water is $25 an acre foot. The desal plant in San Juan Capistrano is $1,350 an acre foot. So that's a vast increase. Whereas the Israelis have it down to about $800. So they're working on it. There's ways, but there's issues. For example, what people don't realize, when you desalinate water, your reject water is very heavy brine, right? And so now you're doing all kinds of ecological effects on the ocean. Hot.
Back in.
It's like the Great Salt Lake, but hot.
Yeah.
And it's all just pumping out. So there's issues with that. There's actually, I saw a proposal once, kind of a cool one, to take water from the ocean, pump it all the way up the I-80 slope of the Sierra Nevada to Tahoe, and pour it onto the Mojave Desert and let it percolate through the desert. So all you got to do, is the pumping expense, right?
Yeah.
And you just wait 10 years because it percolates through the desert, leaves the salt behind, and you get fresh water.
It's probably better than, because the desert's the desert anyway. It doesn't matter how much salt you throw out there. It's not really relevant. Doesn't matter.
Right.
All right. So for you guys, the play for anybody that might be listening is the possible investment in the privatization of these things with the industrial stuff, not the personal stuff. So obviously you have to be an accredited investor to deal with this. There's probably no question there, I'm guessing, right?
We occasionally do crowdfundings. We just finished a Regulation A offering, which is for, as you know, anybody. There's a limit, like 10% of your annual income kind of thing.
Are you doing like fund funding, or are you doing individual, like, are you just saying we're going to do a fund to capitalize a certain number of these things? Or are you doing individual raises for individual assets? Right.
A really good question, because early on we wanted to let people invest directly because, for example, there's depreciation benefits, right? The problem with that is that there's huge regulatory burdens and it varies by locality, et cetera. So what we decided to do was take more of, the MLP, the Master Limited Partnership in oil, uses a basket of properties.
Sure.
And what's good about that is they kind of offset each other. So there's pipelines and there's gas properties and oil properties. They're all in one. And that means that if one is doing better than the other, they kind of balance out. So we're using that basket approach. And so people are funding
into a pool of assets.
Exactly. It's a pool. It's a capital pool. And then we pay, 20% of the net profits come out of it as an ongoing royalty. And they have lien rights to enforce that royalty. So that's pretty powerful. One thing that makes it really attractive right now is this is early days. As I said, it's very early for water on demand. In fact, I think the percentage is 25%. It's still a risk investment. And so they get a very large equity participation in the company, right? So that's where it starts to become interesting. They get a good equity play, they get a royalty play, and it's secured. The royalties are secured by the asset. And water is very stable. It doesn't go through ups and downs. Demand for water is pretty continuous.
Well, what happened? Let me ask you this. What happens if in the pool is my investment in the Bud Light plant, and then they decided to make some ill thought through marketing attempts, and all of a sudden now the plant closes and we've attached a water filtration system? What happens then?
Anheuser-Busch is not going out of business.
True.
Right. So they're not going to stop making beer, but this is why you have multiple properties in the one basket, right?
Well, no. Do you take the equipment and repurpose it somewhere else if this happens? If there's a
great questions, because our technology is mobile. It's a rent-a-center model. You stop paying. Thank you. We'll come back with our semi, pick it up, take it away. We can do that. We can repossess, which a lot of water models can't, because they tend to use the in-ground building that they build like a house, right? Whereas we build more like a mobile home. And so we can take it away. Yes, they have a long-term service contract. We obviously make sure that they're legit and they're solid companies because we don't want to risk our principal. But we also retain ownership of that asset, and we can take it back in case there is, the business goes belly up.
What's the lifespan of a unit? So if I put a unit in, what's the lifespan?
True. The service contracts are much shorter than the lifespan. The lifespan is at least 50 years.
Okay.
So typically the service contracts with individual customer are 50-year contracts. It's about as far as you want to go. And then we just roll them over. Our technology is for these high-density plastic envelopes for the water systems that are warranted for 50 years, and they actually last up to 100. And that is a big motivation for facilities owners, because what they love is the fact that we take care of everything. It comes in as a box. And so all you need is a regular janitor on premises. You don't have to have a water expert to run the system. Mm-hmm. So this is good, right? It just comes in, literally gets dropped on a pad, the water and electricity get connected, and it's running, and we've taken care of everything.
So it's got a 50-year lifespan. It goes in a pool for investment. Is there any additional, so what's your depreciation table on these things? You just do standard depreciation? Can you do accelerated depreciation? Like is there a tax advantage to doing this because it's environmental?
As you know, you can take accelerated depreciation.
Yeah. Do you is my question. Do you is my question.
That is certainly the plan.
Okay.
Because that'll return right into the fund, right?
100%. Because
the investor can't take it individually. Mm-hmm. So we set up individual corporations that each have this basket of so whatever depreciation benefit is incurred by that corporation goes right into the top line revenue, right?
Sure.
It gets back. And so it's a virtuous circle. So that does work. It doesn't work individually for the investor because we've pooled it, right, but it works
for the overall profitability of the fund.
Absolutely.
Okay. How many of these funds have you done? Or how many pools, I guess I should say, have you done? What's your standard cap raise for one of these pools?
This is the first generation, because I remember that we've been doing standard, design and build, as we call it, and people pay for it, and that's the end of that. But now we go design, build, own, operate, DBOO, and that's the full scale. And this is our first generation on that. We opened a $20 million accredited investor raise that we've raised about close to $8 million so far since 2021. So it's growing nicely, and we're keeping the money working while we qualify the pilot deals. So as I say, the biggest challenge is finding these people who are not yet on the radar, right? They have not yet said, I'm ready for a water system, because they're not. They haven't figured it out.
One of my favorite sayings in business is there's there's only two things you can really do. You can find a problem that people have and find an ingenious way to solve it, or you can come up with a great idea and then have an ingenious way to market it. It's really the only two options you have. So innovation and marketing are both the same things. How are you actively marketing this product to potential clients and doing this? How are you building awareness?
So we went through a big learning experience where we tried going to because we have, at any given moment, we have, I don't know, $50 million worth of quote backlog, right? People working their way through the quotation process. And so we would, hey, you don't have to pay up front for it. Universally, like, no, we're good. Why? Because, as I said, we were getting to them too late, right? They'd already entered the bid process, so they had already fixed all that. So what we're doing is a balance. We're staying with that business, growing it. It's growing fast, and we like it. We certainly don't want to stop. It's a good business. And then, meanwhile, the plan is for us to talk to consulting engineers. These are the very first people that, let's say you own a business, it's a bottling plant, and you want to solve your water problem. The very first person you'll talk to is a consulting engineer. This is a person who represents you. This is the architect, right? And right now, what we've started to do is to go to the consulting engineers and give them the option so that they know next time they talk to a client. So what we're doing is really, we're laying the ground for these newbies to come along. And this is the second generation of decentralized users who don't have capital, because you don't want to just deal with the people who have the ready cash. That's a limited market. You want to deal with the people who've not, like Ford, before they figured out being able to pay on installments, they were selling cars, but then it just took off once they figured out doing the installment payments.
Yeah.
So you have a business and it's good, but it's dwarfed by the potential if you can offer the financial.
Are you trying to handle those leases internal? Are you trying to fund that yourself, or did you go to a third party finance partner for that?
Right now, all we're doing is taking the investor's money and funding
the unit, and then that becomes the return, because essentially what you're doing is you're a hard money lender for these hard units.
Amen. That's exactly right.
Question, because I always believe that data drives the world. And you said that it's advantageous for local public works to get some of these larger offenders, if we use them, that are large wastewater offenders, off of their grid. How open are the local municipalities, or have you guys looked into it, to getting their data as to, okay, who would you most like to have kicked off your grid? I mean, are they open to that kind of conversation? Have you guys gone down that road?
Yes. Well, that's a push approach. I'm a big believer in pull, meaning go with the demand versus like who out there is a potential victim versus people knowing they're a victim and raising their hand. So I think that's a good angle. It's a bit biz devy in a sense that you're going to have to go out there and
you got to shake hands and kiss babies. There's no question with that.
No,
you're not going to call the 800 number and they're going to give you the information over the phone.
It's a political process.
Yeah.
And we've considered political process to be a black hole because, we're not Veolia, we're not American Water Works, we're not these multi-billion-dollar companies that tend to dominate the lobbying in Tallahassee or in Reno or in Sacramento, right? So we've stayed away from that. But I think that's a good third wave. So first wave is the current demand, which is booming. We have as much business as we can handle. We're manning up our personing up our staff as fast as we can. Second wave is this water on demand, pay for gallon thing, which is going to be, I think, huge. Third wave is going to be looking for the violators through the lens of the municipalities and reaching down in there and going, hey, did you ever think of?
Those are best targets.
And I think that's a longer sell, but I think we'll get there. We'll get there.
So if anybody wants to find you guys and look more into doing privatized investing into water stuff, how do they find you? How would they find you, Riggs?
Very simple. OriginClear.com, and top right there's a green button, Invest Now, and you'll be walked through it, and you'll get to talk to the co-creator of this Water on Demand program, Ken Berenger, who's brilliant. And he will walk right now you have to be accredited. We're in between the crowdfundings, so it's accredited only, meaning that $200,000 a year minimum, $300,000 with your spouse, or $1 million assets excluding your primary home.
But
So
do
those are the
you, but do you have a mailing list that you're building for people non-accredited when you do crowdfunding?
100%.
Okay.
Here's what the people do.
So you're not
Get to our
locked
site.
out if you don't have those numbers. You're not locked out.
My personal estimation is I'm going to restart our Regulation A offering first of the year.
Mhm.
We just turned it. We had it going until the end of April, and then we decided to turn it to pause it. We're restarting on the 1st. So come to our site. Now, I do a Thursday night CEO briefing. We are the most transparent public company in America. Every Thursday, I lay it on the line at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5
Well, I
p.m.
wasn't aware that
Pacific.
you guys were a publicly traded company. I thought you were privatized. Publicly traded company.
We've been public for
What
since
exchange?
2000.
What exchange you trade on? What's the signal? What's the symbol?
We're OTC,
Okay,
OCL.
OTC. Got it. All right. Well, I have one more very important question for you, and you have to decide. And you've lived in Florida now for how long in Pinellas County? How long have you lived there?
This is 2020.
So it's 2020. So you've been there 3 years, long enough to realize that college football is religion in that part of the world, and that's where I'm from. So I'm not saying this. I'm saying I'm not. It doesn't even matter where you went to. You cannot pick your alma mater. That's not fair. You have to pick a Florida team. Pick one Florida college football team you have to root for. Who's it going to be?
Wow. Since I literally don't watch any spectator sports, I'm strictly a skier and a sailor.
You've got to pick one.
The Seminoles. There you go.
God bless America, my friend. This podcast goes on the air. That is, for those people that listen to this, they know that I love Florida State football as much people have the capacity to love a human baby. And yeah, good answer. Good answer. This will get on the air now because of that answer. But I thought you were gonna crap out on me and give me the Bulls there because you're in Tampa or close to them. But there you go.
Oh, no,
good
no.
answer.
I like Florida State.
Good answer. Good answer. Good answer. So again, if you want to look into investing in some off-market water, just the next cutting edge of stuff, you can find Riggs at the site that he said. One more time, Riggs. What was it?
OriginClear.com.
That's it. Okay.
And just click on the Invest Now button.
Yeah, man, it's a changing world. The world is constantly changing resources, everything else as they go. So the faster you can be an early adopter of what could potentially be next, that's it. But of course, as always, I am not giving any type of investment advice. This is not investment advice. I am not a professional investor. I just try to expose you guys to as much as I can. So there you go. Thanks, Riggs. I appreciate you.
John, it's been a great pleasure and I appreciate it.
All right. Have a great day.